What's up YouTube, this is Boston X99 guys. Today I'm coming to you from my latest deck profile video for July 2020, and today guys we're going to be looking at my pure Dark World deck. Now before I get started, I just want to address the reason why I'm not doing a Danger Dark World variant. For the longest while I've been having this big itch to go back to pure Dark Worlds. You typically have a lot more fun playing that version of the deck. Danger Dark World is awesome. It does have a higher ceiling because it does get you a lot of different effects as well as additional drawers for some massive consistency boost. It's just that Dark Worlds by themselves can really hang by themselves as well, and this particular version does get to utilize a lot of the Dark Worlds sent to the graveyard by opponents' discard effects, and because of that you're actually going to be playing with the full scope of all your Dark World monsters, and that can actually open up a lot more crazy plays that can really cause your opponents problems. Now this is something that I wouldn't be taking to maybe like high-level events, but I definitely would take this to regionals just to mess around with. It is a fun deck. A lot of players aren't going to be expecting it, and to be very honest, you will have a good time playing this deck. Just with the effects that I have packed into this alone. So, without further ado, we're going to jump right into this. And we're going to start off with 3 copies of Grapha, the Dragon Lord of the Dark World. This is the big bad boss monster of the deck. While this card is in the graveyard, you can bounce a Dark World monster from your field back to your hand to special summon them out of the graveyard, so you don't have to waste cards like Monster Reborn or Gateway to the Dark World on them. Very awesome. If it's discarded to your graveyard by your own card effect, you can pop any card off the field, which is actually very useful. If it's sent to the field to the graveyard by your opponent's card effect, you can look at your opponent's hand, take one of their monsters, and special summon it to your side of the field. That's right, you can actually steal your opponent's monsters right out of their hand. And that actually is so flippin' huge, because if you can take one of your opponent's strongest monsters and get it onto your field, you're going to be able to do a whole lot more damage. So definitely worth having in this deck. At 3, we also have 3 copies of Snow, the Unlight of the Dark World. Discarded by your own card effect, this card is the searcher effect of the entire Dark World archetype. Monster spells and traps can be searched off of this card's effect, which is just huge. Discarded by your opponent's card effect, you can actually target a monster in your opponent's graveyard, special summon it to your side. So, yeah, stealing your opponent's monsters, not a bad thing. Alright, and last of the 3 ofs that I have in this deck, we have 3 copies of Brow the Huntsman of the Dark World. This is the main monster draw power of the deck. Whenever this card is discarded by your effect, you're drawing a card. If this is discarded by your opponent's card effect, you're drawing 2 cards. A lot of times you're discarding this card off of the card effects of Dark World dealings or the gate of Dark World. So you will be drawing multiple times regardless. Having this card in this deck, being able to draw into more cards, just gives this deck a lot more consistency. It is level 3, so you do have that tour guide play in this deck for rank 3s or links, so definitely worth having in the deck at 3. I am running 2 high or mid-high level monsters in this deck. I'm running 1 copy of Gold and 1 copy of Lucent. Okay, both copies, when they're discarded by your card effect, they have the similar effect. They basically special summon themselves back to the field, which is not bad. More bodies on the board. They're fiend type monsters, so they get power boosted by the field spell, so you can do some serious damage. It's when they're discarded by your opponent's card effect, that's when things get interesting. Gold, when it's sent to your graveyard or discarded by your opponent's card effect, you can target 2 cards on your opponent's field, special summon Gold, and then those 2 cards you target are destroyed. Very awesome for causing a lot of destructive plays. And then with Lucent, if it's sent to your graveyard by your opponent's card effect, you can special summon any Dark World monster from your deck to the field, which is awesome. If you have another Grapha in your deck, you can actually get it out ASAP. Or if you want to have a particular card in your hand to discard later on, you can always special summon that card to the field, bounce it back to your hand for a Grapha that's in the graveyard, and then you're set up for your plays in the future. So, very useful cards to have in this deck. I'm also running 2 copies of Beige Beige, the Vanguard of the Dark World. Whenever it's discarded to the graveyard, it special summons itself back to the field. The primary reason why I run 2 cards and only 1 of the 2 high levels is because the other 2 cards are higher levels, and this card is level 4, which means you can actually special summon it, or actually normal summon it to the field and continue to play. And it's that option that I actually like in this deck to really give the deck a little bit more playability, so you won't be bricking as much. And the last Dark World monster in this deck is one copy of Cerulean, the Ghoul Rule of the Dark World. Discard this card to the graveyard, especially summon itself to your opponent's side of the field, and then this is when things get interesting. Its effect automatically then activates, and then because it activates on your opponent's side of the field, it's considered your opponent's effect, and that means you get the ability to utilize discarded by your opponent's card effects off of your other Dark World monsters, which is just awesome. And you get to choose the card you're sending. So if you want to rip a card out of your opponent's hand, Grapha, you want to take a card out of your graveyard, you send Snow. If you want to get additional draws, Brow, you get the idea. It does a lot of work, and it can do a lot of damage if timed right. Alright, mention this with Brow, 2 copies of the Tour Guide. This is pretty mandatory in any Fiend-based deck right now. Normal summon, special summon a level 3 Fiend monster from your deck. So we do have Brow as well as one other target that I'm going to talk about after Tour Guide. Can help you go into your rank 3 plays as well as your link plays, so definitely a worthwhile card to have in this deck. And of course we also have one copy of Fiendish Rhino Warrior. Rhino Warrior is actually a very interesting card to have in this deck. On field, it protects your Fiend type monsters from being destroyed by battle or card effects, which is actually pretty damn awesome. And if this card is ever sent to the graveyard, you're sending an additional card from your deck to your graveyard. So you could actually be able to set up Grapha plays in the future, or just be able to set up gateway plays as well. So definitely a card to have in your deck. Alright, moving on. For the spells, we are running 3 copies of Allure of Darkness. Every monster except for Fiendish Rhino Warrior is dark, so you can get the maximum usage out of this card. Draw 2, banish 1 dark attribute monster. Very awesome. It's not a hard once per turn either, so you can actually activate multiple copies of this card during your turn and draw deep into your deck. 1 copy of Card Destruction. This is another mandatory card in Dark Worlds because discarding cards by card effects is necessary in order to set off your Dark World monster. So it can also offer some very good disruption by stripping your opponent's hand of cards. Next up, 3 copies of Dark World Dealings. You need to have this card in this deck. Both players draw 1 card, both players discard 1 card. But of course, you're discarding your Dark World, so you're getting additional searches or drawers, or popping things off your opponent's field, or monsters on the field. So you get the idea. It's going to help get the deck get going. Moving forward, 3 copies of Drag Down into the Grave. Drag Down, especially on turn 1, can really cause havoc because you get to see your opponent's hand, know what they're doing, send a card you know that can basically that they need to get started with their plays to the graveyard. Your opponent's going to do the same thing, so both players are going to see what they're running against. But still, having that knowledge to set up your plays is just going to be able to do a whole lot of things, and it's just so worth it to have in your deck. 1 copy of Foolish Burial because you cannot have too many ways of getting Grapha into the graveyard. And of course we have 3 copies of the Gates of the Dark World, as well as 1 copy of Terraforming. The Gates of the Dark World power boosts all Fiend type monsters by 300 attack and defense, and I am running a lot of different Fiends, not only in the main deck but in the extra deck as well. So a lot of those monsters are going to be able to take advantage of this power boost. Terraforming is essentially going to be able to get you into your gate, so it's essentially a 4th gate. And not only that, but Gates also has the ability to discard a Fiend, banish a Fiend, and allow you to draw additional cards. So definitely the draw power is worth it in this deck, and it's kind of like a soft monster return, so you can actually swap out the field spells and actually utilize the same effect twice in 1 turn. Moving on to some monster recovery cards. Gateway of the Dark is a quick play spell, so you can actually get a Dark World monster from your graveyard onto the field during your opponent's turn, which is actually pretty cool. And of course, Monster Reborn gets monsters from either player's graveyard back onto the field, so pretty necessary in all decks today. For the trap lineup, 2 copies of Dark Smog, very useful in today's game. discard a Dark World, well, you're targeting a monster in your opponent's graveyard, discard a Dark World monster, and you basically banish the targeted monster, which is awesome. And depending on what you discard, you can actually just get rid of other cards on the field, or just get bodies on board for your turn. So, it does its job very well. And not only that, but I'm also running 2 copies of Dark World Brainwashing. Brainwashing can turn any monster effect into discard a card from your opponent's hand effect, which is awesome because that will trigger off a lot of different effects from your Dark World monsters. Just an amazing card. The thing about it is that this card requires you to have at least 3 cards in your hand, and you have to bounce a Dark World monster off your field into your hand to really make it work. And last but not least, for the deck, we are running 2 of the virus traps, 1 epidemic virus, as well as 1 deck devastator virus. Epidemic Eradicator can go after back row spells and traps, holding your opponent down from extending or disrupting your plays for at least 3 turns. And then, of course, you have deck devastator virus taking out their lower level, lower attack monsters, so they can't build their fields. 2 very awesome cards. Alright, that's it for the main deck. For the extra deck, now I tend to lean a little bit heavier on the links when playing pure Dark Worlds. I'm going to start off with the link 4s. I have Boral Sword, Mech Knight Crusadia Arvamax, as well as Skull Dread, Soul Ridger Skull Dread. All these are pretty self-explanatory, but Boral Sword is OTK. Mech Knight is just a very awesome boss monster to have on board, power boosting itself to take out opponent's monsters, protecting your other monsters on the field. And then, of course, you also have Cerusia Skull Drake, which can power boost any monster it points to, as well as special summon additional cards on the board for additional attack, or possibly getting another Dark Grapha on the field via its own effect. And if you can get enough materials on board to use its 4-name effect, yeah, it does help this deck draw a little bit deeper into it to see other cards. Next up, we are running a Nightmare package. Phoenix, Cerberus, and Unicorn, they're all Fiend type monsters, so they get the power boost from the field. But like I mentioned before, Phoenix goes at the back row, Cerberus goes at the special summon monsters, and Nightmare Unicorn just spins anything back to your opponent's deck, so they're all worth it. And let's not forget, we also are running 2 copies of IP Mascara. Any 2 effect monsters can make her. She can link summon during her opponent's turn. So just being able to get her and an additional monster on the board can allow you to do a lot of different things and go into a lot of different monsters. And not only that, but the monster cannot be destroyed by card effects, which is actually pretty damn awesome and a great additional effect to have. And last but not least, for the links, I do have 1 copy of Witchs Apprentice. Witchs Apprentice can power boost all your Dark Tribute monsters by 500 attack. Awesome. She's ever popped by battle or card effects, you're getting a Dark Tribute monster back from your graveyard to your hand. So she does put in some work in this deck as well. For the Xyz, I run 2 rank 3s. I have DD Stone King Darius. Darius, using its effect, you can make it unkillable, and then it pops the monster battles, which is actually pretty awesome. And since we have Allure of Darkness, as well as the Gates of Dark World in this deck, Liviera is pretty much a must to be able to special summon banished monsters back to your field. For rank 4s, we have Evil Swarm Exodon Knight for board wipes, as well as number 62 Gara's the Timeless. Dagara's Timeless, its first effect can actually be like a miniature graceful charity, which is actually pretty awesome. Just being able to draw 2 and discarding 1 helps this deck out a lot. It can also basically special summon monsters back from your graveyard in defense position, or power boost a monster on the field to double its attack and be able to swing pretty big. So it does have a lot of different effects, and it does help out. They're both fiends, again, taking advantage of the field spell to power boost themselves. And last but not least, the rank 8s, I have Dengirsu and number 38, Hope Harbinger Titania Galaxy. Dengirsu, on summon, sends a monster from your opponent's side of the field to the graveyard, so you can get rid of a problematic monster. And then number 38 can negate spell cards, add those negated spell cards to itself as extra materials, and then you can attach materials to basically redirect attacks to itself. It is It is a 3,000 attack point beat stick, so pretty damn useful. The gear suit can also protect from being destroyed by battle or card effects by detaching materials, so also a very useful card for protection. Both great choices for rank 8 in any decks that can access rank 8. Alright guys, that is it for my pure Dark World deck profile for July 2020. Guys, I do hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give this video a thumbs up. If you want to see more content like this on my channel, make sure to subscribe, enable notifications so you do not miss any uploads at all. Check out the description box below. Find the invite link to my Discord server. Join a conversation. We'd love to have you. Follow me on social media, Twitter and Reddit, and also check out the links for my affiliates, tcgplayer.com as well as sidedeckversus.com. Two great resources for any Yu-Gi-Oh player. As always, guys, until next time, peace!